Welcome to the Business Brains and BS podcast, the podcast for people building businesses, battling their own brains, and occasionally stepping in a little BS along the way. So, today we are very fortunate to be joined by Stephen Lindsay, who is the owner of Legacy Fitness Solutions. Stephen, thanks so much for being here with us, man.
Happy to be here. Glad you guys thought it necessary for me to be on here and entertain you people for a little bit.
Yeah. Well, we were worried that you were going to rip us apart if if we didn't. Yeah. Yeah, you remember back in the '80s and '90s and '70s, the Stretch Armstrong doll? So, yeah, we were concerned. So, no, but seriously, man, why don't you tell us a little bit about, legacy? Tell us a little bit about your journey, what got you to a point of being your own business owner?
Well, I'll answer the own business owner piece first. Uh, After doing it for so long, your ideas sometimes kind of get a little bigger than the box you're in, and so it makes sense to venture out on your own and make your own way. Um, the long story about legacy is um, many years ago. Um, Grew up in Chicago. And, a family member that just recently passed away told me and, my siblings that we should do a better job than he did at taking care of his health, and, that was very impactful, and then that coupled with my, intrigue with WWE or WWF at the time, wrestling, here we are.
Who was your guy? Who was the
Hulk
wrestler?
Hogan.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, how many inches
Nice.
are your
Sorry, I should
pythons?
probably say that a little less excited. Hulk Hogan.
Yeah,
I think it was Hulk Hogan.
yeah. How many inches are your pythons, Steven?
About 14s or 15s.
Okay.
Forearms? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, that was Hulk Hogan's wasn't that his thing, like, however many inch pythons that he would
Yeah.
talk about? Yeah.
Yeah, he was an impressive fellow, to say the least.
How big are your biceps?
I don't know. I don't I it's good for me not to measure or look in the mirror.
Mm.
Okay.
We gotta be careful
Yeah,
with this or we'll spend the rest of the episode being like, "How much can you bench press? Take your shirt off." You
that's
know?
right.
Like
Yeah, well, I'm fairly certain that Steven's biceps are bigger than my thighs. So,
Well, we'll never know. We'll never know.
we will never know.
I I
Yes,
I
'cause
normally hug you around the shoulder, so there's that.
all right. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about the people, and we don't need any names, but, who are the people in your neighborhood, right? Who are the people you work.
Nowadays, I tend to work more with, um, business professionals, high-performing individuals who are successful in every area except for their health. So I tend to kinda, um, appeal more to that crowd. So I'm here to help them out and anybody else along the way.
Okay. So that's definitely a kind of a specific niche there or niche there, depending on how you want to say it. So, as we were talking about this episode, Greg and I were thinking about the power of habits. And it's funny because I started working with Steven a couple of months ago, and I realize more and more as I get older that we all have habits, whether we recognize it or not. And they're either good habits, they're negative habits, or they're neutral habits. So how do you help high performers who are so busy with all these other aspects of their life? How do you help them get to a place where they have good habits, especially around taking care of themselves?
Again. But no, it's a good question. Um, One of the ways that because I've been doing this for so long, I think there's a huge power in manipulating enough variables to achieve a result. And so what I do is instead of trying to take a person from A to Z, I take them from A to B. And so I try to highlight the next step and not the final step. So whatever the next step is, I focus on developing habits or success around that. So if the idea is a client wants to, one of the ways that I help people improve health and wellness is by simply addressing their hydration. Simple math says half your body weight in ounces per day. If they're only drinking 20 ounces a day, then I don't say, hey, you need to get to 160. I say, let's go to 40, right? So, and then we create a habit around that. And as we move or have success there, then we start moving the needle forward, set the next benchmark. So, the next step is what I usually focus on, not the end result.
And what areas do you think are the biggest challenges for high performers with kind of busy lifestyles as it
Sleep.
relates to their health? Sleep.
Sorry, hold on. Sleep.
Okay. You wanna think about that and, maybe, take a little more time to noodle on that before you answer?
Well, sleep, as you guys know, sleep is the hardest thing. When do you turn it off, right? So I treat sleep just the same way I do training. I have a certain time in mind, and then about an hour or two ahead of time, I start moving towards um, that direction. Otherwise, I'll be up till 2. You guys will do the same, or you'll be laying there, you know, still working while you're in the bed. You know,
That hurts,
So,
Steven. You're talking right at me,
I don't know
brother.
if you can tell I don't know if you can tell by looking at him, but Greg is a night owl. So most of us have our most productive time in the morning, but Greg is like a 10 o'clock at night guy. So, yeah.
it's interesting you say that. I'm social. I'm more active in the morning. Creativity wise, I'm more active in the evening. So I suffer or I deal with the same deal in the evening times. I'm super creative at night. That is probably the worst time from a health perspective to get going.
So what are some things that you recommend that high performers do as maybe part of their nighttime ritual or the habits as they prepare, to get a good night's sleep? And I'm thinking probably finishing a 12 pack is high on that list. You know, alcohol helps you sleep, right, Greg?
The quality of the sleep, is
Right.
to be
Will
debated.
be greatly
Yeah.
affected.
Yeah, it's called
Good question.
passing out,
Good
not
question.
falling asleep. Yeah.
Oh, there's a
There will
difference.
be
Okay, good
snoring
to know.
involved. There will be snoring. There will be a lot of snoring. No, that's a good question. Number one is have a set time to shoot for, and then an hour or two before, be done with your last meal, and then an hour before bed, try to cut out all uh, the blue light or get rid of your screens altogether. I even go as far as turning my lights down, past sunset. So once sunset hits, I turn all the lights down. My wife loves it because she'd much rather be in the dark, but I will get in trouble, so I'll leave that alone. But anyway, so turn the lights down probably around sunset, then have a set time, and then an hour or two before bed, shut off your last meal, and then an hour before bed, probably get rid of all your blue light. I mean, and if you could cut it off sooner, go even sooner. A lot of us now we have on our phones, we have an app or we have the ability to actually turn off that at a set time. If you go to your settings in your phone, your phone, you can cut off the blue light aspect at a certain time. So at a certain time, like mine set for 6 p.m., it'll turn off at 6. I can still use my phone, but that blue light, which spikes your cortisol, goes off.
Okay, interesting. So you've got your your lights dimmed. Kenny G's going. No, I'm just kidding. So what do you recommend they use that hour for? I mean, the television, I'm guessing, is probably still considered blue light. So is there something that you recommend people use that hour between shutting it down blue light wise and shutting it down awake wise? Do you give people any guidance there?
I don't give them guidance, but if I'm asked, I usually say just get things ready for the next day. You know, that helps to kind of put an end to the current day from a psychological standpoint. So if they start getting ready, yeah, go ahead, Greg. Speak on that a little bit more
Yeah,
because
I would
that's more your
I would
field.
recommend, reading is good if it's reading something like you don't wanna read like a thriller, um, but reading and, meditating, I'm a big fan of that. It's a nice way to get your system to wind down. If you're, some if it's part of your practice, prayer, that kinda thing, stuff that's gonna put you in a nice healthy state of mind and wind down you physically wind down your system, your nervous system and everything while you're doing it. I think those are great ways to wind down, and, things that I try to do, but I'm not always great at, you know, um, but when I do it, I do notice a difference.
Yeah, it's and I always tell people too that if I can manage to help you do that 4 out of the 7 days a week, kind of the 80/20 or that higher percentile, we're making progress.
Okay. So do you tend to find that people do better exercising in the morning, middle of the day, evening? Does it matter?
High performers tend to it's better for them to do it early, from a majority standpoint. Because as the day gets going, more opportunities and more reasons to not do it are there, always. And then by the end of the day, I mean, we're toast, we're fried, we're ready to kick back and put it into it all. Wonder why we're doing this high performing business in the first place.
No, no, that's a great point. So as you think about that, um, we talked a little bit about ending the day. Do you have any recommendations for folks on how to start their day?
Yeah, actually, it's a little peculiar.
Oh, well, we
I
like
I usually
peculiar.
recommend I mean, it's not everybody can do this, is which is why I say it's peculiar. I like to recommend people, number 1, have a set wake time. A set wake time is actually more beneficial, than actually having a set bedtime from a circadian rhythm standpoint, um, because of the, cortisol release. Your body stops releasing cortisol at a certain time based upon what time you wake up in the morning. So it's just an interesting little dichotomy that happens behind the scenes if you have a set bedtime or correction, a set wake up time. But that being said, a set wake up time, I always recommend, from a health perspective, a little lemon juice, a little water, a little salt, first thing in the morning before coffee, kind of help hydrate the brain, kind of help get the gut awake. You write that down?
Yeah, I've got a question on that because I'm a
Yeah, please.
big I drink a lot of water, and that's, the first thing in the
Mhm.
morning, I drink a lot of water. What is the lemon juice and the salt? What does that do for it?
So salt is a overnight your body dehydrates, and you're coming out of a fast, if you will, unless you're chewing while sleeping. Which most people are not, thankfully. But the salt helps to kind of hydrate the brain, um, with the water, of course, and then also electrolyte balance. I do a pinch of Himalayan peak salt, and then the lemon juice actually helps to with gut health, but also helps to detoxify the liver, which actually helps get your metabolism going. So it kind of helps wake everything up in a good 8 to 16 ounces of water real quick before you start drinking coffee and dehydrating the system all over again.
Okay, and it'll help Eric's liver after that 12 pack that he chugged to go to sleep.
Alright. Because after a 12 pack, I always get up at the same time. Interesting. Okay, so after your, special drink there, anything else you recommend, for high performers to do to kickstart their day?
I think they need to start the day with the right mindset. So not waking up at the last minute kind of helps people prepare for the day, get some cognitive juice behind the day and not work from behind, but you work ahead. You work from ahead, you know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah, it's funny, the other day, I had my alarm set to go to the gym, and I woke up before my this tends to be my worst thing is when I wake up before the alarm goes off. And then I'm like, okay, and then I start doing the math in my head to make sure that I've got my alarm set at the right time. And somehow I always manage to talk myself into thinking I can add 15 or 30 minutes to my wake up time. I grab my phone, I change it, and then apparently, just woken up, Eric's math is not great because I do end up putting myself into some type of a rush
Deeper
situation in
sleep. Yeah.
some way, shape, or form. So, um, and I know well, I assume you're going to say snoozing is bad, but what do you have any recommendations for those of us who sometimes wake up and go, man, another 15 or 30 minutes would really be nice? Any thoughts on how to motivate us to get our asses out of bed?
No, actually. I don't have any thoughts on the motivation piece regarding that. I usually work from a, I usually work from a motivation standpoint, I usually work from the other side of the equation. And if I do all the other work that we talked about, as far as, being adamant about the nighttime routine, um, eventually my girls tend to jump out of bed ready to go.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, you
You know what
get
I
if
mean?
you're getting to bed at a good time. I have a couple strategies. I'll
Yep.
see if Steven approves of them.
Yeah,
One
please.
is one I no longer use.
I'm taking
No,
notes,
this
by
is,
the way.
my when I was a kid, my dad's was a big believer in abrupt wake ups, and so if I was hitting the snooze, the 2 really effective strategies that he found was, 1 was, water in my face. That would work.
I
Yeah.
approve. I approve. It's
2
great.
was, and this was probably the one he enjoyed the most, and I understand why. It's very effective. The 2 was pull me up out of bed, get me on my feet, and then let go. So it's you're either gonna wake up or fall. Um,
I
what
love your dad.
what
He's
now,
great.
as I
Sounds like
got
a great
older and
guy.
decided that maybe those weren't the routines I wanted, something I do now, you talked about the snooze, you know, I like being a night owl, in the past, I made the mistake of, like, try to sleep as late as I can because I went to bed late. And what I've learned over time is, um, 5 hours of sleep and plenty of time to get ready, to have a good morning routine is better for the day than 7 hours of sleep and being rushed, for me anyway. And I know I'm likely to wanna hit the snooze, so I habitually set my alarm for an hour before I feel like is a good time to get up. So then I've got and it never takes me a full hour of snooze, you know what I mean? But I've built in a cushion, and that's something I've put into my life is, like, get up with plenty of time. Set the alarm for plenty of time so that you're not gonna be rushed, and even if it means an hour less sleep, when it's time to actually start doing stuff, you're gonna feel better than if you rushed everything to the last minute. That's my kind of my current approach. Obviously, it would be better if I went to bed at a good time and could get it on both ends, but that's the wake up view.
I think that's great. I tend to, people that wanna go deep in the weeds, I usually recommend a 2-hour wake up time before they have to leave the house. Um, and that gives them plenty of time to do their craft, do their arts, whether it's, praying, reading, bathroom time, shower time, eat, do everything they need to do, before their day starts, and they're way more accomplished to where they're not playing from behind, which is for us, it's the worst feeling in ever.
Yeah. That is a great point. I mean, when your day starts off in in a flurry, in a fluster, in a frustration because you're in such a hurry, it really does carry over to the rest of the day. I used to put my yeah, I used to put my alarm clock on the other side of the room when I was in college because I found that, especially with a roommate, you don't want the alarm clock going off the whole time or you start getting things thrown at you. And once you actually get up and get on your feet and get to the alarm clock, it's like, well, crap, I'm already up. I might as well keep going. So yeah, no, that's good stuff.
Another tip too is, another byproduct is, remember I said working from the other side of the line. If you're hydrated, I mean, you once you're awake enough, you're ready. You got to go. You realize you got to go.
So okay, so water. So or hydration. So is water the only thing that counts
Mhm.
as hydration? I know you said coffee starts to dehydrate you, but it's made with a lot of water, right? Soda is made
Yeah.
with water. Beer is made with water. People are going to start wondering about me because I think this is 3 or 4 episodes in a row I've talked about beer.
I don't think they're
Mhm.
wondering anymore,
What's
Ed.
the other business you own? What type of business is that?
Oh yeah, so there may be a spirit store that we own. Maybe I can get it to
So
sponsor
that
the
being said,
podcast.
Yeah.
um, waters, juices, they all count. Coffee is questionable. Lighter teas are work, herbal teas work. Black teas tend to be a bit questionable too, as far as efficacy of the hydration component. But because of caffeine is a dehydrant or it helps to pull water. So waters and juices, milks. tend to be the top of the game regarding they're not fun from a enjoyment standpoint or party time, but, they definitely do the job as far as making sure, all systems are go. Um, the minimum effective dose, which is kind of one of the protocols that works on the back end of my programming, um, is 2 days a week of getting doing something heavy. And, the science behind that is cardiovascular activity impacts your metabolism for 3 to 5 hours, whereas heavy lifting affects your metabolism for 3 to 5 days, okay? So, both are valuable, of course, that's a no-brainer, but, that being said, from the resistance training standpoint, I recommend at least 2 days a week. If you can spread them out, it's better. But if worst case scenario, putting them together is like, a Monday and Tuesday is better than just Monday, right? So that being said, 2 days a week of, resistance training, load bearing activity, whether it's weighted carries, a squat, a row, a pull up, a bench press, shoulder press. Something compound has a high impact or a high value, from a health and metabolic standpoint.
So as far so talk a little bit about the need for cardio and the need for resistance. And is there a 50-50 balance there, or do we need more than the other? How should a high performer be approaching cardio versus strength conditioning or strength training?
Cardio is more heart health, and resistance training is more muscular. Now, muscular is a large part of your metabolism, especially the more muscle you have, the bigger, metabolic impact you have, when you actually start doing some weight bearing activity or when you do cardio. So that being said, cardio impacts, your heart, and then, weight bearing, of course, impacts your musculature. Musculature activity impacts the heart a bit, and exercise impacts your muscles a bit because you have to use your muscles to do cardio. So that being said, they're completely different. As far as their weight, I would say if I would say both have a huge impact on all-cause mortality at the end of the day. As far as impact on how well you're going to live the last 10 years of your life if you're alive. Sounds morbid, but it's a fact. Um, so I'd have to say it's probably 50-50. You know, um, as far as that goes. That being said, one looks more impressive than the other.
Oh, fair. So for people when for high performers when they're working out, should they on their they got their day where they're doing their strength training, and then on the other day, should they be doing their cardio? Should they be tying cardio in with strength training? I know when I do like the circuit workout you gave me today, I was pretty out of breath by the end of it. So I still did
Yeah,
some cardio
yeah,
afterward, but if I felt like I actually got some cardio while I was lifting as well. So
yeah.
what's the recommendation there?
Um, for the high performer, for most part, I usually recommend cardio away from resistance training. And so what that usually means for a lot of them is a 20-minute walk after a meal or two per
Okay.
day, right? So for me, I have dogs, so that helps me. That's my cheat code. We go for a 20-30 minute walk after dinner, which helps me kind of get the sugar out of my
Hmm.
blood from a glucose and metabolism standpoint. Helps with my metabolism, but also helps to kind of get some cardiovascular activity, um, at the end of a hectic day. So that being said, it's not high intensity. That's a whole different subject around the intensity behind cardio and what's impactful. It's recommended that we do at least 2 or 3 sessions a week of low intensity cardiovascular activity, get into zone two. But it's also recommended once or twice a week getting into a high heart rate
Uh-huh.
activity, um, just so that we're able to actually get there and sustain it, and it impacts how well we live life.
Okay. So, and Greg, maybe you can talk a little bit about this because I know personally my experience. I'm sure Stephen would probably say something very similar to what I would say. But when you look at like it from a mental health perspective, w- how significant is the impact on mental health perspective if you exercise regularly, if you do these things that Stephen's
Yeah.
talking about?
Yeah, it's huge. It's usually one of the first things I recommend people when they're struggling with anxiety or depression. Um, you know, there's just a chemical effect, first of all. I mean, there's all the stuff that's happening with your muscles and your heart and everything he was talking about, but in your, in your chemistry, when you exercise, especially when it's like more rigorous, kind of more difficult exercise, you get a big endorphin spike. Endorphin is a neurotransmitter that we all produce, and essentially it makes you feel good. To really shorten it and kind of dumb it down. So you get this big endorphin spike on the front end when you're exercising. And then on the back end, it leads to also a dopamine spike, which dopamine is the chemical that we associate with all kinds of things that we enjoy, whether it's, even things that aren't healthy, like, like we were joking about beer that's dopamine, but you get a dopamine spike from exercise as well. So you get this kind of double whammy of neurotransmitters that make you feel good, and then that's how you build the habit. Like, that dopamine spike makes you wanna do it again, and that's why even though your muscles are sore, you wanna do it again tomorrow. That's that dopamine driving you to do it. So, and when people are struggling with their mental health, if someone's depressed, if someone's anxious, boosting those chemicals can really help. So it's a natural way. And it's not just depression and anxiety. I used to work with a client who was a heroin addict, and that was, he'd spent years doing opioids, and opioids really hit both of those chemicals, your endorphins and your dopamine. And as you may or may not know, like, opioids are one of the most addictive drugs out there. They just wreck people. And this guy, he got really into running after he got off of opiates, and he told me it was, like, such a crucial part of his recovery, and he was like, "It's crazy, it's almost like doing heroin because I'm like, I do this thing, and then when I'm done, all I wanna do is just lay on the bed and do nothing else, but I feel so good." And he's like, "And that's what it was like when I was doing heroin. It's like I just lay on the bed, do nothing, and I feel so good." It's a completely different way of getting there, obviously. So yeah, it's exercise is greatly beneficial. There's research out there that says not this is not for everyone. I don't take this as blanket advice for everyone, but for some people, a good exercise routine can be just as effective as like an antidepressant medication. So it's really a really good tool um, for mental health.
There's actually research that shows your brain
Mhm.
grows, and you start to fire in synapses in areas of the brain uh, that don't get accessed otherwise. So that's a whole different level of meathead, if you ask me. But it's
All right.
true.
So
Yeah.
what about and I'm probably the only one on this podcast who's ever experienced this, but I skipped a workout. I messed up and had a whole pizza instead of two slices, right? And now I've got myself to a point where I'm feeling some guilt and some shame, and it's like, well, I'll just start again on Monday, even though it's Thursday. I'd be interested in both of your takes on how can people deal with that. And Stephen, we'll start with you first.
Um, get over yourself and start with the next meal. You know. Now I don't say that to most people. I say, "Oh, I'm sorry," but we could just start again tomorrow. You know what I mean? But people that know me closely, they don't just keep it moving. You know what I mean? You're gonna have those moments. If you don't have those moments, um, I question if you're being
Mm.
honest. So I say have those moments, and get past it. Just keep going. As if that becomes the norm, then we need to have a different conversation. We need to reassess our goals, reassess what we're doing, why we're doing it, and maybe we need to just regroup all together. But for the most part, I'd say Just start with the next meal. Start, don't wait. Don't trash 4 days for the sake of a meal or two.
That's great.
Yeah. For me, a couple things come to mind. One thing that happens to people is when we set goals and then we don't achieve those goals, sometimes that in and of itself can be depressing. And so this thing that started out as like a motivating thing becomes a defeating kind of thing. Obviously, it's not how we meant it, but we kind of let ourselves get in that mindset. So I think sometimes that's what's happening to people is like, I had this ideal in mind of how it was going to go, and then I didn't achieve it. And so now, well, I guess, whatever. I just talked to a guy this week that was dealing with that. He was going to start that 75 hard challenge. Um, the first day it was going well, and then he caved and had some food that wasn't on his diet. And so then he just stopped. And it's like what Steven was talking about. It's like, well, that's one meal. I mean, you could, the next meal could have been good. You could have still got your workout. You could.
Mhm.
Um, so it's that kind of like, oh well, I suck. Might as well give up. So I think that's what gets some people. So realizing the way I put it to clients sometimes is, um, going back to like the addiction analogy, like somebody, gets, 60 days sober and then they slip up and have a bad night or two. And so they'll tell me they slipped up over the weekend and I'll say, okay, well, when's the last time you were sober 60 out of the last 61 days? I'll be like, "Oh, probably 10 years ago." I'm like, "Okay, so you're 60 and 1 over the last 60." It's not, you're 0 and 1, looking at it that way. Um, and then the other thing is, going back to the dopamine thing. We get a dopamine spike when we do something that works out the way we want it to. We also get a dopamine spike whenever we anticipate something. That's kinda what helps motivate us to do it. So doing, especially if it's new, like following the diet, following the workout and stuff is a challenge. And so if there's a part of us that wants that comfort, wants that, the sugar, the whatever, um, it's kind of this like, well, I messed up and that it's like it can be I can use it as an excuse to kinda take a couple days off, and then that just the idea of that feels good, thinking about the pizza or the brownies or whatever, like, and now I'm, like, excited about that because I, entertain that notion, and so that drive gets a little stronger, but you can flip that around. Just the way you started to let yourself start thinking about the other cheat foods you can have or whatever, you can flip it around to, thinking about how good the last few days have felt when you've been doing well and how you're gonna feel great tomorrow if you get back on your diet, and then that same dopamine drip will hit, and you'll start feeling like doing that, you know? So those are just a couple of things that come to my mind on how to work with that.
I have a funny story about a diet. So, years ago when I used to compete, um, the food was very boring. Now, diet food has come a long way. You can actually enjoy diet food nowadays, but back in the day, it was horrible. But I used to watch Food Network while I ate my while I ate my diet food, and I've never enjoyed food more than watching Food Network while eating plain chicken and green beans or potatoes or rice or something. They're some of the
Mm.
best meals.
Now when you say compete, you mean figure skating, right?
Yeah, yeah. It wasn't swimming.
Oh my goodness. Wow. So, all right. Well, Steve, why don't you tell everybody listening how they can connect with you if they're interested in getting some accountability and some coaching? They're a high performer and they want to be high performers in the boardroom and in the gym.
Legacy.fitso. Legacy.fitso on Instagram. It's kind of the best way to get a hold of me. I'm on Facebook too at Legacy Fitness Solutions, but that's a mouthful. So legacy.fitso is kind of the best way to reach out to me, or you can email me at Steven at legacyfitnesssolutions.com. Again, that's a mouthful. So legacy.fitso is probably the best way for most.
And that's FITSO, not
Correct.
FATSO, because that would be legacy.fatso. And that's the opposite of what we really want here. So, all
That's
right.
nonsense. That would be
Yes,
condescending.
there you go, yeah. So, all right, well, Steve, thanks so much, or Steven, I call you Steve. It's interchangeable, right? So, Steven, thanks so much for being here with us.
I answer
Yeah.
them all.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah,
pleasure.
call me
Pleasure.
whatever you want, just don't
Hope
call me late
hope
for
to get this
dinner.
I hope I be able to get this again soon. It was a blast. I had a blast. Hope you guys, enjoyed it, and, um, hope we
Yep,
can do this again
absolutely. Well,
soon.
Yeah, for
thanks
sure.
again for being on here. And for those of you who are listening, that should do it for this episode of the Business Brains and BS podcast. Remember, progress beats perfection. Hope is not a strategy, but it is a necessity. And the BS that tends to hold us back usually starts in our own heads. So if you enjoyed this episode, follow the show on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts, leave us a rating, and make sure you share this with the business owner who you think needs to hear it. So until next time, we'll see you.